Good morning. My name is Carol Suter, and I'm pleased and proud to serve the city of Gladstone as a member of the city council. I've served one term as mayor. Gladstone, for those of you who don't know, is a wonderful community north of the river, just under 30,000 residents. We're completely surrounded by Kansas City, Missouri, so we're really landlocked. We are a third-class statutory city in Missouri, so we have an unusual kind of form of government in that we have a city manager, city council form of government, which means our city council, 5 members elected all at large. We don't have any districts, and we don't elect a mayor separately. The council elects the mayor among ourselves each year. And like everybody, we're volunteers, of course. We get paid $100 a year to be on the Gladstone City Council. So sometimes being the mayor is more a process of, it's your turn. I just did it 2 years ago, and you've got to do it, because it takes extra time and energy. But it's a great way to kind of keep the responsibilities part of a team experience. And that's one of, I think, the hallmarks of Gladstone as a city and as a kind of local culture. Gladstone's been around since 1952, so it's a fairly new city, and it's been pretty much residential. We have no casinos, and we have no industry. And we can kind of confound that conventional wisdom that you can't have a successful city based on retail and small business. But we do, and we have. And, you know, all kind of modesty aside, my experience says that Gladstone is one of the best managed cities in America. And that's one of the reasons why we're so successful. But in the last 10 years, we've kind of experienced a level of success and growth and dynamism that has kind of exceeded our expectations and blows our own minds, but has gotten lots of attention and local, national, and international awards as well. And people kind of say to us, we have a new downtown coming out of the ground, we have award-winning community center, we own a historic farm, and we have some of the largest regional arts and culture events in our town. And people often kind of say, how do you guys pull this stuff all off? You know, how do you get all of this to happen in Gladstone? And I said, well, you get it to happen because people support what we're doing. And I said, well, why do people support what you're doing in Gladstone? And I said, well, because what we've learned is when people are happy with the city, they support what the city is doing. So the next question is, well, you know, how happy? And we do lots of different kinds of surveys in Gladstone and participate in all kinds of research. And from time to time, we've had national companies say to us, you've set a new level of citizen happiness. We've never seen numbers like this anyplace else. Kind of what's the key? I said, for us, we know the key is exactly this: robust citizen engagement. That's the answer to how or why people are happy with your city. The way we're set up as a city, like most of you are, kind of provides a fixed level of citizen engagement right from the beginning. And that's because we run the city through boards and commissions. The city council, of course, can't possibly do everything, and we're only 5 members, so we don't have council subcommittees. What we have is a whole series of boards and commissions, from parks and recreation to, you know, zoning appeals to everything. Dozens and dozens of citizens serve on our committees. And that process is an open process once a year. You know, we send out open invitation to apply. Council reviews applications, chooses people to interview, and then we make appointments. And probably about 15 years ago, we started this process of trying to engage these people more actively in more ways, and so started pulling all of our boards and commissions together from time to time to process issues or questions of concern for the whole community, and of course to, I guess, provide better information about what was going on. That kind of helped us move a little bit forward, but 10 years ago really was kind of the watershed time in Gladstone. And that was when the city council decided to really wholeheartedly make a huge #1 goal out of significantly improving citizen engagement. And so we engaged upon a citizen-based long-range planning project called Gladstone on the Move. And the attempt was to pull together 120 or so people in the community to engage in long-range plan for the city. By the time the project was finished, over 300 people had participated. Now, the challenge about citizen engagement is people only participate on their own terms and for their own benefit. So if you're going to call people together and entice them with the notion that they're going to make decisions for the city, then you have got to let them make decisions for the city. And so this really takes commitment on the part of elected officials and staff. Some cities, the councils kind of run and do everything. In other cities, the staff do everything. In either event, whoever is the power, we don't like to give up the power. And people know that right away. So if the point of citizen engagement is, we want to get you together so we can learn something and then we'll decide, it's not going to be successful and you're not going to get people to participate. So we had a council that was very committed to hands-off. Council members did not participate in Gladstone on the Move. And of course, staff did not participate. This was citizen engaged. The council appointed the initial organizing committee. They picked their own leadership, and then we provided outside professional consultants to the process so that they could plan and execute. The thing lasted for about a year, and engaged, as I said, about 300 people. Well, they actually did make some decisions and decided several things that they thought were important. The two most immediate ones were that the city needed a community center, and we needed another ambulance to provide more ambulance service for an aging community. Came to council with their report. Council said, great, we love it, we support you. It costs a lot of money to do these two things, so what are we going to do about that? So they kicked it back to this group, and 300 people met and decided that we ought to raise taxes. And so for the first time in 52 years, the only time since 1952, Gladstone actually put on the ballot an increase in property tax. It passed overwhelmingly. Special tax for public safety to add the ambulance service passed overwhelmingly because people decided themselves that that's what they wanted to do, and so it worked. And so we have an award-winning community center. We have adequate ambulance service. And one of their longer-term goals was that we needed to have a downtown. Gladstone has always just been a residential community without any city center, and so that's a lot of what we've been working on these last 10 years, and that's what's coming out of the ground now with all kinds of exciting projects and a whole new vision and new life for the city of Gladstone. So Gladstone on the Move set us on this path. First experiment, keep your hands off, let people tell you. Because what we learned is, if people tell you what they want, and you give it to them, they're happy, and they will support whatever kind of comes along next. So we have gone whole hog in the 10 years in every kind of required planning, like comprehensive plans. We all required to have comprehensive plans. We turned it over to citizen group. Again, we had like 150 people who did our comprehensive plan update. Every kind of major plan in the last 10 years, economic development update plan, were all done by citizen groups. Again, we're getting good at being comfortable to let that happen. Our role as a council and as staff is to make sure that these citizen groups are well informed. They have the resources they need so that they know what they need to know as background in order to make decisions. So a lot of the role of us is that information process. And then we even went down to kind of like little committees, like task forces. We needed to update our sign ordinance, right, for businesses. We put together a citizen committee of business owners, right, the people who would actually be affected by these kinds of things. When we've updated our transportation plan, again, as part of the MARC process, as part of, other larger regional transportation plans, that was all done, again, by citizen groups, different citizens. We're trying to make sure, that it's open to the public and lots of different people participate. We just recently updated our parks master plan, and that involved all kinds of levels of citizen engagement. The bigger the project, the more different levels of activity you have to have available. Because just calling a meeting and saying, y'all come and be on a committee and meet, 8 times, is only going to get a certain kind of citizen to participate. And so then we have local neighborhood groups. So we're around the parks, people who live around the parks. We made sure and went and actually had meetings in individual homes. We do, surveys, different kinds of techniques to get input. But our Parks Master Plan is one of our most recent pieces, where it was our first opportunity to incorporate some of the Communities for All Ages information. That we've been a pilot city, so we've been in this now for a couple of years. And so one of the pieces, the next plan, the next park that we're developing is called Hobby Hill. It's an undeveloped piece right now. And it's going to be our first truly intergenerational public park, where it will have children's playground and adult playground, where it will have access for people with disabilities. It's just a wonderful plan. But for us, it was one of those first opportunities to take this kind of information from the checklist kind of background and give it to the citizens who are helping us devise the plan for this park. And they did the right thing. They figured it out, who all needed to have access to the park. And so it's going to be a fabulous new park. Linden Square is an outdoor amphitheater that we opened, 2 years ago now, I guess? And this was an interesting project, again, where when you actively engage citizens, they will actually make for a better project. And so City Council had decided, as kind of a kickoff for the development of our downtown area, we have been, quietly acquiring property in the area for the downtown, because we knew that you can't just, say, hey, we're going to have a downtown. Developers, why don't you come build a downtown? It doesn't work that way. And when you're in a first-ring suburb like ours, we're like 99% developed, so we don't have any green space. Everything's redevelopment, and that is really challenging to attract developers to. So you have to consolidate ownership in order to attract anybody. And so we had done that, and then, we, again, do our homework, and we realized that arts, culture, entertainment, and recreation were keys to building a community center, district. And so we decided to use this kind of natural hill right in our downtown to develop a small outdoor amphitheater. And we came up with kind of a modest plan with staff, because, we were always watching our pennies in Gladstone. And then, of course, it was like, okay, now wait a minute, we can't go ahead with any of this until we put this out to the community. So we invited the community to come in and formed a committee to have a look. And their idea was, that isn't good enough. We want it to be better. And it's going to cost a little more, but we want it to be better. And so they really challenged us to grow the idea. And it turned out to be the linchpin. It cost us about $1 million. And in 3 years from the opening of Linden Square, we will have seen almost $100 million of development in that area. So it was a good investment, supported by, if we had just gone out and said, hey, we want to spend $1 million to build this little outdoor amphitheater, and we're going to have programming, every weekend with music, and might not have passed, if it was on the ballot. But because we went out to citizens and said, here's what we believe the philosophy of this downtown is and what it needs, what do you think? And they came back and said, we want it to be first class. We don't want to do anything that's less than first class. Then it was totally supported. And it's turned out, like I said, to be a huge boom. Well, you can't just, say, let's have a meeting and everybody come. We used to do that. And, WW2 generation, when you did that, they all came. We don't all come today. So you have to find lots of different ways to invite people and then to engage people in lots of forms if you want to get their input. So public meetings, for us in Gladstone, still work extremely well. And that's because for 10 years we've been doing these. People tell us what they want. We listen and we give them what they want. So that builds a lot of momentum, where people have an expectation now. You come to a meeting in Gladstone, you're going to be heard, and they're going to do something about it. And so that encourages people to come to public meetings. We use every kind of other form, the kind of the one-way thing. So surveys, phone, electronic, hard paper, because lots of folks still don't have. We're reminded often that there still is 23% of the American public who do not have access to the internet and do not use electronic media. So we always have hard copies of everything available at City Hall so that we can get responses from all different kinds of folks. About 5 years ago, we realized that as newspaper print media was declining, there aren't newspapers, the Star had stopped its Northland bureau. all of a sudden, as a city, you're saying, well, how can a democracy exist if we don't have informed citizens? And we're just Gladstone, nobody's covering anything about Gladstone. So we decided that we had to take the matter into our own hands. And so we created a magazine, and I have to kick myself because I was going to bring a copy with me. It is a full feature, fully professionally done, full-size, commercially looking magazine. And so it's entertaining, there's all kinds of stuff to read, but it is the way that we get information out. It's free of charge to residents, it is delivered to every home, and to offices of people like dentists and lawyers, anybody who has a waiting room. So in Gladstone, people have access to this. It's, like I say, it's very attractive. But it's a great way that we combine kind of fiction and human interest and other kinds of things, history, with information about future, about projects that are going on in Gladstone, about programs that you can participate in. Kind of, it's one of those things where if you flip it upside down, the back cover then is our Parks and Recreation schedule, that kind of things in it. So that magazine has really helped a lot to keep people informed. Because the truth is, when people participate, they get better informed. But it's also true that when people are better informed, they participate more. And so we are trying to attack it from both ends. Give lots of opportunity when they participate, give them information, but give information so that people have a reason to want to come out and participate. We have, of course, website, Facebook page, we do, and Twitter, we have all of those things, and encourage people to talk to us all the time that way. We created an electronic newsletter for the same reason as people were getting onto the website and Facebook page and stuff. It's our way of being able to send out information one way. Neighborhood associations. This is the one piece that I kind of wanted to focus on at the end. And that is that you have to know your audience, and we've learned better and better in the last 10 years how to understand the demographics of Gladstone and kind of the psychographics of Gladstone. Different parts of the community interact in different ways. And so we're pretty good at, older Americans, because we're older in Gladstone, and we still have a lot of folks who participate in the historic kind of ways. We're learning to do young by doing electronic, because that's where we hear more from young folks. Although amazingly, they come out to focus groups. We use focus groups, and they will come out for some of those. But what we found the most challenging is with increasing diversity, racial and ethnic diversity in Gladstone, that there are parts of the community that don't come out for anything and don't respond to any of these other avenues, and many don't have access to electronic communication, so we're kind of missing there. So we started a few years ago on a project to develop more neighborhood associations. There are homeowners associations, and some neighborhoods had kind of historic neighborhood associations. But in our older neighborhoods and in our most diverse neighborhoods, we didn't have those. So we actually have for 5 years now actively created, I think we're up to 19 this year, 19 new neighborhood associations have been formed in different parts of the city. And that's the thing of, one approach is say, here's the event, y'all come. We've learned that it has to be the other way. We're going to come to you. And so we have to go there. So we have found that to be hugely successful. We now then formed a new commission for the city, a neighborhood commission. So all the neighborhood associations have a way officially to come together and to have their input come to the city council. But lots and lots of activities, again, supported by the city. And then we kind of have gone one step further, which was most of the most diverse neighborhoods in Gladstone are in multifamily residences, so apartment complexes. And neighborhood associations, we were just looking at single-family residences for those kinds of neighborhoods. So what we decided 3 years ago or so was to treat multifamily residences as neighborhoods. So an apartment complex is a neighborhood. We begin working with owners. We have the first in Missouri mandatory multifamily inspection process. Every time an apartment turns over, it can't turn over unless it's inspected by the city. And we just kind of have stepped out there to make our multifamily complexes safer, to earn the trust of the residents. So we started by making sure that they know the city's working to keep everything up to code and to keep the landlords on the straight and narrow. And now we're moving toward how do we engage the residents so that, again, they have input into what's going on in the city, and we have a way to contact them. Our seniors group, especially because of this Communities for All Ages approach, we have for years done an annual survey and focus group process with our seniors programs. The city, we run a whole very large seniors programs. And so every year we have asked them to give the city feedback on all kinds of issues. And so we have specifically sought their input for a very long time. They love it. If we get late with it, they let us know. They really hold us to account. Overview, it's been very successful. It takes lots of different ways to engage the community. It takes the willingness to actually listen and do what people say to you. But I think that they're really good strategies that can work as you're trying to implement Communities for All Ages in your community.
Thank you, Carol. We have just a few minutes to do brainstorming on this area so that we have plenty of time for the social inclusion part. So if there are questions, we can bring Carol back up here. And as stated earlier, if there's a particular area, when we bundled these topics together, we knew that we were going to be somewhat challenged to have adequate time for each one. So if we see that there's an issue area that really requires more time, we can have another event or another meeting focused on that. Carol did a great job of what Gladstone is doing around how to engage participants, and we really do want to have some time for you all. We have a committee with KC Communities for All Ages, which is civic engagement, with an eye toward using older adults, particularly the boomers as they retire, as a great community resource. How many of you are aware of the survey that MARC sent out? The target was to city and county administrators. But in December and January, we sent out a survey to get a kind of a baseline of what communities and counties are already doing with volunteers. So in your packet is just a really kind of a brief summary of the surveys that we collected. We know that we're going to be trying to get more responses from larger cities, because for the most part it was small cities who responded. The part under volunteer management and administration that you'll see that's highlighted that I just wanted you to be aware of is that the majority of the respondents did indicate that there was an interest in becoming a little bit more aware, a little bit more trained in the area of volunteer management, and of the administrators who responded indicated that the majority of the way that they'd be willing to invest in that ongoing development is through workshops and conferences. So the Civic Engagement Committee of the KC Communities for All Ages initiative will probably be asking representatives from cities that are already doing some substantial volunteer management and working with volunteers to assist us in designing a workshop that we'll do in the fall or winter around volunteer management within jurisdictions. So just really kind of wanted you to know about that. And then the other part on the checklist that is in this area is employment. And we wanted to ask if there were, what are you all experiencing in terms of having folks getting ready to retire? What are you doing? Is this an issue? Is this an area that you need more support, or anything that we can help with in terms of how to support and prepare for organizations that will be having a deft of people who are retiring. So we'll just throw those out, and I think we only have about 2 or 3 minutes for this discussion. And then any examples that you have about how you're engaging your communities that you'd like to know as well. So we'll just open it up. Yes?
I do have a question for Carol. I know you mentioned on, for instance, the ambulance service, passing the sales tax and citizens getting more involved. What happens when you get into a situation where you do involve citizens, you engage with them, they have ideas, but in the realistic terms of dollars and cents, you know that not everything they want is possible.
Well, we've had kind of a mixed experience, as the Linden Square one, where they wanted us to spend more money. The Gladstone on the Move, where we just came back with great ideas, but here's the financial reality, and then they came back with ideas. So that tends to be kind of our thing, is if you have a grand idea, and then we'll come back and say, here's the financial reality, now help us figure it out. And that's been true, like in the parks, our master parks plan, because there's huge ideas, of course. I mean, it'll keep us busy for 20 years. But what we did was, had to come back to the leadership group and say, now you have to prioritize in terms of time. We're saying it's going to take about this long to accomplish all these things that you would like to have done in the next 5 years. It's going to take 20, so help us prioritize. And then we always ask again for ideas for funding that we might have missed or kind of for new opportunities. That's kind of how we've handled it. And we're just ready now to start our next citizen-based long-range strategic plan this year. So it'll be interesting to see, because we've accomplished a lot, how big the dreaming gets, and then, what do we have to do? Our citizens are usually thriftier than we are. I mean, they're usually more concerned about the price of something or how to save money to get what they want. They still want us to be fiscally accountable. Question?
Okay. Do you have a wide range of ages in these citizens who participate? Are they mainly older, middle-aged, and senior? Are you engaging any millennials?
Yes, amazingly, I think most of us have observed in America that's like Gen X we seem to have lost, but millennials are a lot like baby boomers, and so they have kind of more interest and are more willing to participate. So we found new levels of engagement from millennials. And we started a leadership academy, which is another way that, a citizens leadership academy. I was in the first class, and there were people in there from like 22 to 85. We were surprised at people at the high end, but really pleased that folks at the lower end age level were getting involved. We found that has been a really great source of getting millennials to participate, is they're interested in the leadership class. And then we get them onto boards and commissions and into these meetings. So we're encouraged that millennials are coming along. If anybody knows how to find those Xers and get you back engaged, we'd love to learn.